So thanks everybody who's been in attendance. I want to welcome us to the Finance Committee meeting, which is Tuesday, November 1st. The time is 4:18 p.m. So I ask that we first start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll stand and turn to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next I can say, I got her. Next, Trustee Bell, do you mind leading us in prayer?
Hallelujah.
Thank you.
Father God, thank you for allowing us to have this Finance Committee meeting. Thank you for allowing those that are here to partake in the village to make sure that our financials are in court. Thank you for our committee that's here, our Finance Committee, and that we have valuable information that we can disperse to the community so they can understand their tax dollars. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so I'm going to start off. There are 3 committee members. I'm going to do a roll call. Myself, Trustee House is present, Trustee Steve present, and Trustee Brown is unavailable. So we have 2 of 3 members. We have a quorum for a proper Finance Committee meeting. Thank Brother Tino for coming and bringing the microphones for us. So we started delayed, so we're going to try to introduce that midstream if we're able to. But I did not want to delay us any further. So what I will want to make sure that we kind of put in record or put out here is this meeting was called, actually the original request for our meeting was through email, all through email request. First, the request was on October 2nd, requesting that we have a Finance Committee meeting after getting the financials and seeing a deficit of $1.5 million. The response was that requesting a meeting for October 12th. The response was that the administration would be unavailable and can hold a meeting on the week of October 24th. Subsequent to that, there was another request on October 11th seeking a meeting for October 26th. The response back was November 1st at 4 p.m. The administration should be available. So we called the meeting today, and we have the 2 members of the Finance Committee members. So, okay, wonderful. So with that, we are here today, Trustee Steve, myself present, and we will do our best to share the information that we have with everybody. We printed up copies of our financials, and I'll discuss the information that I have, and any questions we'll do our best to answer. With that, the first thing that we have on our agenda was our monthly financials. The most recent financial we had is through August 31st, 2022. So the financials as handed to everybody, there are 2 funds that we always look at, which is our general fund. So I will ask that we go to page 15 of the financials. That shows our general fund. That's our revenue less expenses. And as we look towards the middle of the page, that's where we see from for the fiscal year to date, which is May 1st. Isn't that what? You couldn't hear me? Okay. So fiscal year to date, May 1st through August 31st, you see the monthly deficit for the month of August, deficit $1,249,649.61. Fiscal year to date deficit $1,527,298. This is the total that we've discussed, and we wanted to make sure we could try to get a little bit more clarity on potential issues that could cause this deficit. Again, stating that this is a big concern for the Finance Committee, and we want to get an idea what's happening or how we can get things in order. So I'll kind of pause right there for a moment. See, Trustee Steve, if you had opportunity to look over the financials or have any questions about it that I may be able to answer. If not, I'll deal. Many of these things I believe we will have to redirect to the administration because that the plan has not been shared with me at this moment.
I don't have no question. Could you explain, as a trustee and from the trustee standpoint, why this is a concern?
Well, of course, the deficit in itself, being $1.5 million in 4 months within the year, is a concern. If you look a little bit further over on the same page, it shows the prior year to date through August. So we're still on page 15, and you'll see the deficit last year at the same time is $359,000. This year at the time, if we do a apples to apples comparison, it's $1.5 million. So there's been much more spending from one year to the next. Last year, the property taxes were deferred. This year, the property taxes are deferred. So that's still the concern with property taxes is an ongoing thing. And generally during this time of year, we will do you will run your financials. I think, Trustee Steve, you mentioned that you'll try to not do as many expenses until property tax revenue comes in. Just by way of giving further illustration, if we turn to page 7 of the financials, page 7 will show the revenues, and on the revenues you can see all of the property tax revenue. Again, last year property tax revenue at the same time, $2.4 million, $2.4 million for this year. Same time last year, $2.5 million. So we're virtually at a breaking even point. Trustee Steve, I know you asked similar questions with communities that you work with. If you have any observations or anything that you wanted to state?
Yeah, what I've learned from working in other communities that I listen to their finance meetings or I talk to the finance director this time of the year, and even I learned that when I first got elected, you go to these trainings as elected officials and you learn that in these winter months when the property tax income are slow, you have to get lean in your spending. And that's the term that they use, that you don't do no big spending until January, February, when the property taxes start coming back in. So everybody is lean around this time, unfortunately, except us. So there's a lot of spending going on right now. So that's a cause of concern.
Okay. Having stated that, any additional comments, Trustee Steve?
No.
Okay, with that being said, the next item that we have on the agenda as we do follow-ups on the status of our annual payment to the City of Chicago, as well as our annual bond payment to make sure we are still on track. For the City of Chicago, there are two bills that we want to make sure we keep track. Monthly bills, which are our ongoing bills to make sure we do not fall further behind. My last communication that I received a response from was September 29th from our finance director, indicating that all of those bills are current and on time. Then we have an annual payment, which is tied to the second installment of property taxes. The annual payment is our settlement with the City of Chicago. If we make 8 payments on time, then we will get a forgiveness of the final 4 years, which is a savings of $4 million. The response that I received is due to the property taxes being late, then that could put us behind on making the payment, which is a reasonable explanation of with that being late. One of the conditions is that we must make the payment either within 60 days of our second installment coming in, or by December 31st. The suggestion that I made to the finance director was that an email be sent to the City of Chicago, just confirming that, letting them know we're waiting for the second installment of property taxes, making sure that we will remain in good standings. I was advised that email would go out. I requested a copy. As of now, I have not received it, but we are, I appreciate the response, and we will do more follow-up to make sure that we keep that going. So that's the City of Chicago. Our bond payments, well, Ms. Rainey, we'll be briefly through here, and then we'll go to citizens' address, and then I'll be glad to answer if that's okay. Okay. With our bond payments, the bonds are due in the final month of the year as well, which is December. And as of the same communication, September 29th, I've been informed that we are on track to make the bond payment in December. So we will continue to monitor that to make sure that payment stays on track so we do not have any issues. Any comments, Trustee Steve? Okay, hearing none. The last item on our agenda that we had is for our fiscal year 2021 audit. Every year, of course, we should have an audit done by an independent law firm. Lauderback and Amon is the firm that's been contracted to do the audit. This audit that we are awaiting, we have received a draft form, but not a final version of the audit. The audit itself is for the fiscal year ending April 30th, 2021, which is 18 months ago. Generally, our audit is completed within 1 year of the fiscal year closing out. Last year, we received the audit April 2nd, 2021, which covered through April of 2020. So we are in 18 months of receiving an audit. Again, this is a cause for concern, which means that the audit we receive will be the last year of the prior administration. It will not reflect anything that has occurred during this administration. So we do need to get some resolve on what the holdup is on that and what it will take to get the fiscal year 2022 audit underway and back on track. Any questions about that, Trustee Steve? Okay, so having said that, it was a brief and short agenda. Well, I wouldn't say short. We hope to have more dialogue and more answers, and that's where trying to make sure we had it here in person at the Village Hall would have been a little bit more helpful. But those are questions that I want to make sure that at least we're informing the residents that we are doing this follow-up and make the residents aware of what's happening within this community. I do want to defer right now to Trustee Belcher or Norwood to see if they have any questions, and then we'll open up for resident comments.
Do you have any information about the ARPA funds?
No information of the ARPA funds has been sent to the Finance Committee.
So we don't know the status of the monies that we received, the disbursements going out?
We do not know any status updates on the monies received, nor the monies gone out that has not been shared with the Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you. And don't say that big word like deficit, because that scares people, okay? Thank you.
Also, I guess could you update the residents on the previous court case do you want to update them or not? Do you want to talk about that now?
You feel free to share.
No, you know better than I do. I think I just want to say that, a lot of people think we're not doing this just to, how can I say, if we're asking questions about how the money's spent, that's something that we're entitled to. And it gets interpreted as we just want to argue or fight. But if we don't have questions about the ARPA money, the taxpayers' money, and if you can spend it how you want to spend it, then this is not a democracy. This is a monarch, that you're running it like a queendom, where that person can say what I want and do what I want. And that's just not how government works. So we're just asking critical questions of how taxpayers' money was spent, because if this stuff is spent, which it is, recklessly, somehow, some way, we'll get the blame for it if we don't speak up, if we don't ask questions. So we all ran for office to do the right thing by the taxpayers' money. So we're just trying to do our job and try to do what's right by the taxpayers' money. So it's not about fighting or arguing. It's just about answering clear questions about transparency, about the taxpayers' money, and we're not getting it. That's it.
Well, thank you, and I think the forum it was very important, especially after seeing the financials that we call a meeting. So we attempted to call it several times, and we'll continue to have different venues to at least share what we are seeing and what we are able to get our hands on. And then we ask the residents to as well join in and ask any questions that they have, any questions that the committee has. We are happy to share our insight or our input, and hopefully we will get more engagement in the future. Trustee Norwood, I don't know if you had any questions or anything that you wanted at this time. Oh, okay. Well, with that, I'll open it up. We have a handful of beautiful ladies here today. So I thank those for joining and see if there's any questions. I know, Ms. Rainey, you had a question. I didn't know if there was and one gentleman. I'm sorry, sir. rugged good looks. I can't describe them as beautiful. It's rugged good looks. So any questions for citizens address?
I just wanted to bring up, I thought that Tiffin was asking for a loan
Yes.
to
So
pay the bill because the property tax money haven't come in.
yes. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Did she ever get the loan money?
Yes. So there was a request of the board for a tax anticipated warrant, $2.8 million. The $2.8 million was approved by the board because it had a 0% interest rate. So that money did come in and has hit the bank. I want to say that happened in late September. October 6th, it came into the bank, so those funds have been received. One thing to make sure we recognize is that's to make sure that we're able to meet our cash flow obligations. So the second installment, and I'm going to ballpark, is generally about $5 million of revenue for the village.
Okay, that's not enough money to pay the water bill.
So, well, it will be enough to pay the second installment of the water bill, or the water bill payment. Yes, it will be enough. The major point to consider is that money has to be paid back when the second installment comes. So once that payment comes in, if we get a $5 million payment, $2.8 million of that is already gone.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Price.
I would like, you keep saying we're in the deficit. Is it from overtime? From all the parties? And I know the police is everywhere with our mayor, and I know they're not working for free.
Yes.
You know, you gotta tell us why we're in the deficit. Where is it from? Because I know you all used to say, well, even the employees, we're not doing any overtime. It has to be authorized if you do overtime and all of that.
There are several different areas within the financials that are up. Salaries are one of the main expenses for a village, and the salaries are salary lines in the.
Are we in deficit because you don't know about the new employees that's coming in, and you don't even know what they're making? You don't know what raise a person is getting. You don't have no information. Do you have that information?
We do get the payroll records. Short answer, yes, that's one of the contributing factors. Salaries are up, overtime is up.
Because if it came across the board, then it wouldn't be, well, why is this happening? It don't come across you all. So when new people come to get hired, you all don't even know how much they're giving them.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions?
You mentioned about the letter to the water department. Can you, to Chicago, can you write your own letter since you haven't gotten a response from, shaking her head?
Well, we are able to do that, but that's potentially that's not the procedure. That's a potential overstep. While we want to make sure that we are being informing and communicating, the finance team has their duties, and it's possible that they wrote it and just decided not to share it. So we want to make sure that you speak with one voice, because then that can, if one message is coming from the board, another message coming from the administration, then that could lead to miscommunication and the city expecting payment sooner than it's actually able to be given. So we will continue to follow up and ask that those things happen, but I think it will cause more confusion than in an effort to help. Any additional questions? Okay. One of the biggest things that I always try to advocate for, push, is that we make sure that we keep everything documented. That's why I wanted to make sure we shared this information with the residents that were able to come, as well as any correspondence. So please, if there's any questions or anything that we want to share documents, feel free to give me email me at jhouse@vodalton.org. I'll be happy to share that information. And also try to encourage that the administration post many of these details online as well, so that it can be available to the public, and that way many things can be shared. So I asked the residents to kind of join in that charge to say, we should all know what's going on. So it's not information that the board is requesting solely. It's something that I feel that everybody's entitled to know. Any closing comments, Trustee Steve?
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing none, I'm gonna do a I'm sorry, Ms. Rainey?
Yes, I just wanna know why come the mayor's not here?
The mayor was given the invitation, so the final invitation was sent out on, this meeting notice was posted on Friday evening. The email was sent to all elected officials, mayor included, on Monday, along with the agenda, and apparently the mayor decided to not join.
You said part of it is like salary. Don't everyone that comes in here, don't they supposed to go through you guys to vote on their salary? How does that work?
Well, the approval should be, the approval should include, making sure that we have received the proper information, the person has a background check, and the salary should be presented to the board, and it should have also been approved within the budget. There is an ordinance to that effect saying that the mayor, the statute indicates the mayor gets to do the hiring. Our ordinance says it can, after the mayor hires, it has to be advice and consent of the board. So we have to ratify, for lack of a better word, the mayor's vote, and that has not been happening. Yes.
Yes, we have an ordinance in place, which over the years, when Rogers first got in, they took that away from him, and it had to come before the board. Then election happened, they gave it back to him. Then they took it away from him. The difference is, we gave this administration that same ordinance, and we put the ordinance in place. The difference is, the past administration will follow the ordinances. So we got the same ordinances, because people say, well, y'all need to shut this administration down like they shut Raleigh down. We got the same ordinances in place. The difference is that this administration is saying, I'm not following not one of them ordinances that y'all put in place. Sue us and take us to court. So we have things in place to kind of monitor it, because when this money is getting spent, or if there's a lack of trust, you should run it through the board. That's why you have ordinances and laws. But if they're not following it, then that's why you end up with $1.5 million deficit. That's where you end up with all this reckless spending that we see at the last minute. That's why we have to take drastic measures as far as changing the names on the bank accounts and stuff like that, just to get a hold of the spending. Because if we don't, it'll be blown out the water, which is being done now. So that's what's happening. The ordinances are supposed to be followed, but they're just not being followed. We have things in place to keep it in check. But if they're not going to follow it, then we can't keep it in check. That's where it's at.
I have another question. What are you gonna do to get us out of the deficit?
That's the question that's the $1 million question that we invite, while we ask the administration what's the plan to do it, because we insist that we reduce spending to make sure that we can get out of the deficit. But in order to reduce spending, we need the administration to follow the direction that's being proposed.
So any businesses, should they come through the board if they decide, well, we want this, Restaurant Road, that? Shouldn't it come through you all to decide this is what we want? Or can she just do whatever she wanted to bring, whatever business, and start construction anywhere, without, what's the point of you all being here?
Well, Restaurant Road, they're asking for $3.5 million bond.
I don't mean to be disrespectful.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But what's the point of having trustees
Yeah.
if you all can't do your job?
I agree with you. That's been the tug of war. Where if, like I said, Restaurant Road, they want $3.5 million. That has to come the way a vote from us. So it never gets sold as that. It gets sold as, don't you want a restaurant in your neighborhood? Don't you want a restaurant? And you're gonna say, yeah, I want a restaurant in my neighborhood. But the behind the scenes, the stuff that's hidden is that $3.5 million bond that they want to get that thing going, and we haven't approved that. So stuff like that has to come before us. Now, if she courts, from my understanding, she can go here. The administration can always go and court businesses. I know Rogers used to do that. He used to go and try to get businesses, but when they start coming here asking for things, then it has to go before the board. So they have to get licenses and permits, and excuse me, all that stuff. But America can always court businesses to get them to come to the town.
We don't have enough police to have a venue like that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and then I'll also kind of talk on what's the point of a board. Ideally, the board, everybody will work collectively, and then we can all have our committees, and everybody will be bringing resources to the village, and we'll implement it. That's in the perfect scenario. In the case where things are not going properly, and you're not, when ordinances are not being followed, you still need that check and balance to at least make sure the community is aware of what's going
I understand
on.
why you're there, but
Yeah.
I'm saying it because I know she doesn't care about you all.
Absolutely.
And she's just walking over you all and whatever. But we need you all to be the check and balance.
Yes, and that's why
to keep everybody honest.
and we're going to continue to make sure we call out what we see. Hopefully we can work to a solution, but if not, the community will definitely know about it. Good questions.
We just in the same space. It's like we can't move.
Okay. Well, with that, any additional questions? Okay, so with that, I'm going to motion that we adjourn, the time being 4:43. Trustee, a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded, so roll call is Trustee House, aye. Trustee Steve,
Aye.
and Trustee Brown is absent, so we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for
I
attending.
do want to say one more thing. It's important that I remember when I first came in, if any trustees, even if they was at odds with the mayor, if they had a committee meeting, them department heads had to come. And if it was a lot of fights back then, but the department heads had to come. Now we have a committee meeting, department heads, they're told not to come. I don't want to say that actual fact, but they don't come. So obviously there's something happened because they don't come to none of our committee meetings. That's it.